Welcome to NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series, where we focus on how financial advisors work, live, and give to their local communities and our greater financial services industry. Now, let's get started with the show.
NAIFA Nation, welcome back to Advisor Today podcast, where we give you the voice of some of the brains, the minds, the creatives of the financial service and insurance industry. We're super excited to have as a co-host today, the technician has come from behind the scenes, the Zach Hewells. Big Zach, how's it going, bud?
I'm great. How are you?
You know, I've referenced Zach as my Mad Men co-star, right? So if you ever seen Mad Men and Zach, you can go look it up. He is the guy. He's one of those guys from Mad Men that we'd have a good time if we were filming back then. So Zach, do we have we always have to have sponsors on our podcast. So who's helping us sponsor this program?
Today, I'm going to tell you why you should earn the LUTCF designation if you haven't. If you're a new agent or advisor, the LUTCF program is the perfect way to kickstart your career. It's a designation that's recognized as the industry benchmark for insurance credentials, and it's endorsed by top financial firms and insurance agencies. Graduates of the LUTCF program report increases in their earnings, client base, and even job satisfaction after they complete it. So develop the skills the top insurance agencies demand that agents need to know while advancing your own financial career. You can learn more at lutcf.naifa.org.
Love it. And Zach, it's brand new, it's fresh, it's exciting. We've launched it. Word is that we're going to have it out in different countries. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is going to be the pinnacle of a designation that people need.
Started in 1984, and now we're looking at a brand new curriculum for it since last year. So exciting stuff.
I love it. So who do people call to even get that started?
Well, they can actually call me if they want. I would say that, there's a fantastic member of the NAIFA staff named Brendan Burnett, who is the senior director of credentialing. But, myself, Brendan, we know a lot about the program since we helped move things over. So reach out to them.
So, Zach, I know I'm in the pilot program and I'm slow motion, but my objective is that by January 1, my LUTCF is finished. And my mentor is John Wheeler. So he is like, hey, what are you doing? Like, we need to finish it up. So,
well, you're spoiled then.
We've got it mapped out so that J1, it's a done deal. So with no further ado, though, we're blessed to have one of the past superstar presidents and wonderful volunteers of our association on with us today, Mr. John Davidson. Mr. Davidson, it's good to see you. How are you, bud?
Good morning, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm good to see you and Zach together. It's like a tag team. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. So we get a chance to sit with you and spend some time. We'll call it the president's round, the past president's round table discussion, if you will. So let's start off. So just real quick, if you could just highlight where you are in your practice at this point. You served as, and just take us through like the time you were NAIFA president and kind of what you're doing now with NAIFA, just so people get a feel for who you are for first time NAIFA members.
Sure. Well, taking this walk down memory lane, I was NAIFA president in 2006 and 2007. So that's probably before Zach was born, but nevertheless, there was a lot going on back then. We had a different location. We had just decided to change CEOs from past national presidents. At that time, we'd had Jack Bobo and Bill Reagan and others go through the chairs, and we thought, well, it might be a good idea to have a professional association executive run a professional association. It's not that just because you were past president didn't automatically mean that you had the skill sets to run. At that time, it was, a $20 million budget with 60,000 members, 700 chapters, and 700 different dues structures, and all the crazy stuff was going on. So we're in a new world now, but we had a lot of really challenging times early in the from 2001 to 2006. Things were great. We've turned things around. But most importantly, I think that we're finding that the same drive and passion of the leadership that was volunteering at that time is still prevalent today. I see that in you and all the other people who are putting their hats in the ring to continue to serve our great federation, and I'm excited about that. We had, interestingly enough, one of the focuses during my year was to get into new technology and bring NAIFA into the 21st century. We had never even heard of a podcast. We never heard of AI or any of that stuff, but we were just getting into the thing where you could actually do a Zoom call, and it's like, oh, how do we do this? And how do we get, 1,000 people on one call or whatever? And what was the bandwidth we needed? We had no idea what was going on, but we succeeded. And here we are today in the 21st and a half century, just about. And it's been great. So I've enjoyed the ride. My business has transitioned from, I was like, I started with Mass Mutual in 1981. With them for 10 years, 20 years with Guardian. Then I became a broker. I've got a corporation with 5 profit centers, and it's been a tremendous ride. But now on the back of my career, as I mentioned to you when we talked, I think it was last week, I would love to be coming into the industry right now with all the modern technology, the high tech stuff makes things really, really great and exciting. A little challenging because we lose a little bit of that high touch, but I'm excited about it. And if I could go back 20 years right now and start where you are, I would just be on fire. I am working with a new young guy, and he's going to be taking over our agency. And right now I'm looking to go to that next phase. And we formed a new LLC. Here I am at my age, and I've been trying to retire for 7 years. I can't walk away from this. It's too much fun. But we have a new LLC. We're going to be working with nonprofits to try to help them have some legacy planning so they have a constant source of income. And had it not been for my involvement with NAIFA, I wouldn't even know how to bridge this gap. It's out there. So I'm excited to be part of the deal.
So the question I've got for you is, so if we're speaking to our constituents out here and our following people that listen to us, what does retirement really look like for someone who's been in the industry for a long period of time? And what does it really look like? And well, let's start with that. What does that really look like to you? Like, is it you're like working with clients? Is it you rode off in the sunset and give me a check? Like, what does it look like?
Well, I'll just start off by saying trust the system because it works. I mean, I'm living proof that when you have 40 plus years in the business and you have different profit centers within your business model, you could pretty much withstand any kind of economic upturns and downturns. As a matter of fact, when COVID hit back in 2020, that was when I started really seriously thinking about retiring because I had, years and years of renewals. I have health insurance practice part of there for the medical side. Usually small groups. I got rid of the larger ones; they were just too burdensome. So the small groups there. I have a pension from Guardian. I have investments, and I have Social Security, and I've structured. I listened to my own advice. I have no debt. And I bought a new house 7 years ago, right around that time, thinking that I want to make sure I have, a 1-story instead of the 2-story, multiple levels. And so we did all that, and we actually had a plan. Dee and I talked about it, and I tried to retire, but I couldn't. And rightfully so. I think there's nothing in the Bible about retiring. So it's just, I love what I do. I love interacting with people. I have people now, fortunately or unfortunately, who are calling me because the claims are coming in. Mm-hmm. We paid off about $4.5 million in life insurance death claims in the last 6 months. I had a long-term care policy that I sold to somebody in 1992, and the wife had pancreatic cancer, and we paid on that. They paid that long-term care claim. And you talk about having fulfillment, Chris, in this industry. That's what we're there. And I will tell anybody right now that's been in the business like you, 20, 30, whatever it is, the calls are going to start coming. And when those calls start coming, that's when we come into action. We're there with something other than, flowers and sympathy cards. We're bringing money and compassion because it's not a transactional relationship. It's a personal relationship we have with these people. So for me, I made a pledge to clients 40 something years ago, and I'm keeping it every day. It's really rewarding.
I think that connection between you and your clients is what makes it hard to be able to say I'm walking away, right? And,
Yeah.
and so um, I'm not sure anybody in our industry ever technically retires unless there's a private equity group that comes in and says, we're going to give you a check, right?
Yeah.
But there had to come a line of demarcation where you were like, okay, I'm going to bring in a young guy, or I'm going to bring in someone else and start to relay some of the either A, responsibilities, or B, start to give up some of the controls. Let's call it that. Let's call it that. Maybe it's not control. Maybe it's just some of the decision making, right? But there had to be a point or a line that came in the sand that allowed for you to be in the process, be able to do that. Do you remember the moment where that happened, or do you remember the time or what was going on in your life or in your mind? The reason why you were like, yeah, I think it's time for me to take action on my thoughts.
I can't remember the exact time, but two things spring forward in that arena. One is when I started paying these death claims, I came to the realization that I am not immortal, because these are people I've known for my whole life, or my whole business life for sure. And here, in a lot of these cases, I've already done the buy-sell agreements with their businesses where they're transitioning their business. Most of them were business owners or doctors, and they've got the next iteration. Now I'm actually in the third iteration of doctors for buy-sell agreements. They're in their low 30s, and now their senior partners are in their late 50s. And so that made me think, oh gosh, I need a younger face of this organization we've had for 44 years.
Yeah.
So they can identify. And the other part about that is I don't have the technology knowledge that Zach does, or Bianca and others do. And you really have to have that knowledge, or have somebody on your team that can make these things work and interact with people in the 21st century. And so I had to come to that realization, and I decided, let's see how we structure this. So I've got one of my sons works for Intel, so he was my immediate go-to guy. He knows a lot more about that than I do. His comment to me was, "Dad, just let me show you how to do this." I said, "Why don't you just do it for me?" Because
Right.
I don't have the bandwidth to absorb all this information. And anyway, but that was the thing that happened to me, was I realized that it was time to do that, and also that made me reach out to an estate planning attorney that I've known for a long time to redo my whole estate plan. I always thought, I don't know, if, like Tom Hegna says, every day is a Saturday. Well, it kind of is, but even on Saturdays when you're just playing, you still have people are going to call you and ask you, what are you doing about transitioning your business? Because we go on the golf course together and say, well, I don't really know. Well, you can't say I don't really know. This is your world. So I've taken my own advice, and when we formed this new LLC, we went ahead and we opened up the box to say, okay, new wills, new trusts, new corporate structure, making sure everything is in order. And I've seen that with my other clients who have died and didn't have their stuff in order, and the nightmare that gave to the surviving spouse trying to go through all these things, everything from passwords and account numbers and everything else, and accounts receivable and payable and who's where. It's important to do that. And again, it's an opportunity to talk to the clients that I currently have. What are you doing about your estate plan? Because I'm doing it, and I'm in it actively.
So I'm curious about something. Someone that's been in the industry as long as you have, I imagine that the succession planning, there's a lot to pass on, and a lot of knowledge in your head that you can pass on to that person. But then it reminds me of something you mentioned earlier when you said, I would have loved to have started now. Like being in the business, if you could just start right now, what it would be. So what do you think that would look like for you as someone who has those natural skills to be in this business? What sort of things are you excited about that some of the agents could take advantage of in today's modern world?
Well, let me give you a little background perspective on that. I mean, Tom Curry had a great line one time. He was running for secretary 100 years ago, a long time ago. And his line was, you can't go back to a place that doesn't exist anymore. You know, as great as it was to have those interactions with people and rubbing shoulders and going to monthly local association meetings and going to the national conferences and looking forward to seeing everybody, that just doesn't exist in the same way. But to your point directly, is the technology for me is exciting. I love the technology challenge. I love to be able, for example, I'm heavy into AI right now. I'm doing little. I use AI in a lot of things, and what I do is I have a couple of apps that I use. Everybody uses like Chat GPT, and you have people who are using Gamma Dot app, which is a kind of a cool one for presentations. I'm involved with a couple of men's groups here in Southern California. I have a Saturday Bible study group. You guys get out there, and I'll look up something. We'll have a topic, and I'll hit an AI, and all of a sudden it lights the whole thing up. And I go, wait a minute, but you have to check it. You can't just go on AI. You've got to make sure that where's the source coming from? And if we don't do that and know that we're doing that, we know our clients are going to do that. You've got to be on that same energy level. You've got to be on that same intellectual level, knowing where to find the information. If you don't have that drive, find someone in your business that has it and let them run with it and educate you and your staff on how this works. It's exciting. The time savings is tremendous. The trade-off is people are going to be losing jobs, unfortunately, I think, in that perspective there. So the other thing it made me think of is, the one thing about our industry, other than using products as a commodity, it's pretty much required. People aren't knocking on your door and say, okay, I want to buy this because I've looked it up on the internet. That's a conversation starter, but they want to have that relationship. Again, it's too easy to have a transaction. And I think with time being the most precious commodity we all have, people will want to have people who will just press the pause button and let's bring this down to a more gut level discussion about what's important to you. You can always find out anything to back up and support on AI, but the technology stuff, Zach, for me is just, I love it. I love learning, and sometimes I have trouble trying to make the theme colors match. I don't know, but I know what I'm looking for, and I can measure it against actual, historical experience of what I know about stock market. And I know about trends in the industry, things of that nature. But things are changing quickly, and you have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And maybe this is a dangerous tangent for me, but with AI, I've had this optimistic viewpoint for a little bit that sure, we might be losing jobs because of AI in the future. We don't know that for certain yet, but we also don't know what sort of jobs will come about due to AI. If major changes are happening in our landscape because of it, who knows what will exist? I mean, if AI wasn't part of our conversation or daily lives 5 years ago, then who's to say that a bunch of new opportunities won't be there for the everyday person in those 5 years too? So it's interesting. It's very, very interesting time right now, especially for those that are younger trying to get started in the business. I agree.
Yeah, it's really kind of fun because some of the mainstay companies, the Northwesterns, the Mass, the Guardians, those career agencies are still out there, and they preach that high touch, and then they back it up with the high tech, and there's a win-win for everybody in that environment there. But again, I think when you find out what's important to people, you're going to find that that's going to span all sorts of generations in time. And at the end of the day, I think everybody wants to make sure that they're not going to be a burden to their children as they get older. They have their affairs in order. Their business is going to have a succession plan set up in a timely manner, and it's going to be funded with insurance, if at all possible. So that's a discussion started, and we'll see where it goes. And people like Asafi Taylor, I watch his stuff, and he's got a phrase. He says, if you've got a plan, great. If it's working for you, great. If it's not, let's talk about something you do. And then he says, let's get started. He does it. So it's like you're using that high touch and high tech at the same time. Beautiful.
It's evolution, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. It's evolution. How AI allows for us to evolve a lot faster, at least the knowledge. Before, there was we have to go test it, and we have to test it 10, 11, 20,000 times to make sure that it worked, and then we can roll it out. Well, that's changing, right? Because AI allows for it to do the testing, or for it to bring best practices together for the purpose of the industry. Talk to me a little bit. Let's rewind the tape then. Okay, so as an advisor, can 2025 has been a very interesting year so far. So a new president comes in, and this is not in our specific situation, but new president comes in. It's not the first time, John, you've seen a new president come in. Kind of, what are you saying to what are you saying to your clients, or what are you doing as an advisor to make sure that your clients are open and aware to what's happening in the political environment at that time? So we're gonna kind of break down the year a little bit. So year started, first 90 days is, every president comes in and says, oh, my first 90 days is going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right. So you're advising your clients now, or talking to your clients. What are you sharing with them after the first 90 days? And then how are you preparing them, or how are you preparing yourself to continue to grow your business in light of what's happening in the political space?
Let's just say if it weren't for NAIFA, I couldn't do things the way that I'm doing them, having been, so heavily involved in the advocacy with NAIFA for so many years, learning to find common ground with whoever I'm dealing with, because our products are nonpartisan and economics affect everybody. It's easy for me to make that transitional conversation. And again, anytime there's a new event or a 24-hour news cycle that stirs somebody's emotions, whether it's a financial thing or whatever it is, that's a starting point to have a discussion with your clients. I think you can look at that and say, hey, gosh, did you see what they're doing? This big, beautiful bill in the Senate, and all these little hurdles are jumping over back and forth and stuff like that. And they'll say, yeah, then they'll usually will tip their hands and say, well, I think it's going to be great because they're not going to tax tips, and they're not going to tax Social Security, for the people that I'm talking to also. And it's like, well, yeah, but what are you going to do with that extra money? Because right now we're paying 85% of the Social Security benefits are being taxed. And if you're getting 60 grand a year or whatever it is on your Social Security between yourself and your spouse, 85% of that's been taxed. Well, now it's not going to be. So what do you do with that extra money? Do you have a particular cause that you want to help support? Do you have children or grandchildren you want to do funding for their education, or you want to do buy a supplement? You want to buy a piece of property? What do you want to do? Let's talk about what you want to do in the window of time that you have left on this planet. So I find every opportunity I can to talk to whoever about that, and also ask him. I said, my first question is, how will these potential changes to the reconciliation of the budget, the big beautiful budget or whatever bill it is, how's that going to impact you? And a lot of times they don't really know. They hear sound bites, and depending on who you're talking to, even if it's your CPA, I also look for that as an opportunity to ask them for referrals. Who do you know that you're talking to that I should be engaging with? Who's going to have a beneficial amount of money left over from this new bill when it goes through? Oh, good. I have to put that against the backdrop of tomorrow in California. We're having a 65-cent a gallon gas tax added to the already existing ridiculous amount of cost for gas. So all three of my boys have Teslas. I haven't got a Tesla, but they would have bought a new one. So anyway, I'm just saying there's opportunities there for everything when you look at current events and bring them up as a topic of discussion.
I wonder though, the first 90 days, you say, okay, it's like the space shuttle taking off. We're going to use 90% of all our energy in the first 90 days, right? So now we get into the dog days of summer, right? How are you adjusting your approach during the dog days of summer, both for you to stay motivated, come to the office, do everything you need to do, work with your clients, but also to keep your clients motivated with what they said was important to them that they wanted to accomplish, like those two things. So what are you doing to stay motivated? And two, what are you doing to stay on track and stay disciplined to the things you know are necessary to be successful?
Yeah, it's interesting. Early in my career, I used to keep a yellow sheet of paper and put a person's name on there, their current situation, whether their family or business, whatever it is, and then a type of product I thought might be suitable for them. If they needed to have more life insurance, or this newly married couple get some term insurance, get a block of insurability to protect their future. Somebody he's just graduated as a CPA or whatever, a doctor, and get them disability and business overhead. So I keep a list of that. And I've actually carried that over. I've tried different systems, the one card system and all the things that you could possibly work. Find what works for you. And what I do, Chris, is every week, I'll put down a list of people and I will make the calls. And the old adage is they either buy or they die. for me, it's the relationship, and it's a long-standing relationship. I have this one particular doctor client. He's been busy, and I went to see him. He said, "Hey, I got to get together with you to get that disability insurance, but my family and I are going to Europe on a vacation for 2 weeks." I go, "Okay, well, I'll see you when you get back." So my dance card is now full for the month of July for all these people that took off right after vacation. And while unlike when I was younger, when I had 3 kids at home and they had college, we had all the stuff going along with those expenses. I've been very selective on who I'm seeing and when I'm seeing it, and it's just like you'll find out when you assume the role of president of NAIFA. When you're in front of people and you have a specific message you're delivering, people will respect that because you're respecting their time, and they know you're not there to just chit chat. You're there to make a difference, and people respect you. And so you're going to find, like I did, my closing ratio is over 90%. And it has been. Doesn't used to be, but it is. And the other thing I learned is that I don't carry forward what we call the China eggs, where you have, well, I think this person should. Well, talk to them, ask them. Don't just put a bunch of names on a piece of paper and say, well, I'm going to have X amount of premium if I sell all this. Well, you're not going to, first of all. And secondly, be realistic about it. The last part about that is I became what's called either a systematic premium hunter, or I became a product specialist. And depending on the mind. So, for example, there was a time when Prudential had a cash long-term care policy with 0-day elimination period, unlimited lifetime benefits, and a 5% compounding with no cap. And I found out that policy was going away because there's no way they could properly price this thing. I sold 22 of those policies in 10 days to my A-list clients. 22. That's a product specialty. And I will tell people, we don't know how long this is going to stay in force. I mean, how long it's going to be available. I would get it now. This is a once in a lifetime. And if you don't want it, I'll go to the next person. And I did. Same thing I tell people. I've been waving the banner. And if you look back you go back to 1999, 2000. I gave a few speeches at the time when I was state president in California about losing the tax favorable treatment of life insurance and annuities. I hope it never happens, but there's precedent. And in our current economic climate, we're sitting at $37 trillion in debt right now, 36 and growing every day. I ran for Congress back in 2010, and that debt was 12. It was 12 trillion in 2010. It's now 37 trillion. We crossed the Rubicon a long time ago. So the government has limited places where they can get money, right? They can raise taxes, they can cut and modify benefits and programs, or they can remove the tax favorable treatment of those who have it, or do means testing, or some component of that. And I happen to think, I hate to say it, that that's going to happen in the future. You're going to find people, once they say you have a threshold of X amount of dollars you have in assets or earning, you're not going to be eligible for Social Security at all, or if you are, it's going to be pushed out to age 72 and a half or whatever. I think something like that is worth a discussion. And so I wrote an article for California Broker Magazine that I'm going to give to Shay today at lunch that talks about a Social Security safety net that you can create by purchasing a permanent life insurance policy, like $1 million or whatever the number was, $500,000, $1 million. And you buy the policy when you're in your 50s or even up to age 60. And you know that money will be there in the event that you become ineligible for Social Security, or you die and your wife has to take the lesser of this, only half of what you're going to get. And you've already taken that safety net and put it in control where you can control it. So I've done that, and I've sold that a lot because people see all they're doing is repositioning assets. We're not asking you to spend any money. You're sending money down the road to that future retired person you're going to be someday. So the money will be there when you get there, and you have complete control. Just getting creative, looking again at current events and what you see the future in the next 5 to 10 years. And Zach, I want you to keep working hard because I need that Social Security income because I get a lot of golf outings I want to take my kids on.
You know what, I'll do my best. But I really like that because life insurance is a tool that already encourages those to think about things long term and what could happen down the road. And I don't hear people too often talk about what it could happen. A lot of times life insurance, like what could happen to me personally. But in that case, you're thinking what could happen to the way our government's set up, with Social Security. And it's like, what could happen if that's not there? And so it's kind of outside perspective, thinking outside of because life insurance can be so personal to people who, they think they're invincible, they're never going to die. But if you tell them, well, money, especially nowadays, money in government might not be there. So it's interesting to think about that perspective for sure.
It goes to show that, we all are dealing with a lot, right? In the first 90 days, we have inflation that is somewhat unhinged, right? It's a little unhinged at this point. And so John, I'm gonna ask you some questions. Tell me your perspective. What are you telling people about or sharing with people about these inflationary times? Everybody wants to go buy, people haven't stopped spending money. I see that. What are you telling them? What are you telling them in this inflationary times? I mean, you guys are getting a 65 cents extra tax on your already extra tax gas. That's great, right? What are you telling people about inflationary times? So,
I'm living it with my three sons. I have and 9 grandkids now. At my brain just keeps going. If it's this bad now, how bad can it really get as you go down the road? Especially for home affordability. Of course, living in California is different than living in McCook, Nebraska, or something like that in terms of cost of housing. But everything is so expensive.
right.
I think about my youngest son. He's got 3 kids, another one on the way. And they're just like, it's every day. It's a grind. It is really difficult for them. And they're still renting a house. And as property values continue to increase, and with the interest rates on an inflationary cycle upward, still up in, over 6% to get a 30-year fixed mortgage, they can't afford that. Their income is not keeping pace with the need to do that. And the housing market is dictating prices where it's like, are they going to move out of state and move to Texas or Arizona or Nevada or Idaho? I don't know the answer, but it breaks my heart to do that. And now I know a lot of people in my circumstances are helping out kids just to get them through it. And part of it's to keep them close by. It's like, it's one of those things. And the inflationary thing, I'm not a fledged economist, but I will tell you, inflation is the great destroyer of retirement plans too.
Yeah.
It eats away at the purchase power of all that stuff. And so people who say, well, I'm putting X amount of dollars away in my pension plan that's matched by my employer a certain amount. Well, you hope you have a good economic, climate when you get ready to retire, because if you happen to retire in a down market where it's really the inflation is taking place, you get a double whammy. And people like Tom Hegna are out there and they're preaching this from the rooftops, and people better start listening to that. And so the traditional, years ago, when you have a defined benefit pension plan, if you work for a government, you got to have a certain amount of money when you retire, and you know what that is. But even still, with inflation, that will be eroded away, that purchase power. So you have to make sure that you're talking to people about, well, what are you doing to position yourself that when you do retire, you don't have a lot of extra expenses, because your Medicare, your medications are going to go up. Your costs for unexpected breakdowns and things in the house, you have to do repair bills, things of that nature. They're going to eat away at everything, and those are future dollars at whatever the cost is at that time. And that's something you put on the table. Ben Feldman said it best when you're talking to someone about their future. You take the problem, you put it in a package, and you present it to them, ask them what they're going to do about it. We provide solutions for that, Chris. And if it means that you have to, forego a few luxuries at the early part of your career when you're trying to make a living and build your practice, you should do that, because you have got to show that you have the discipline to put that money aside for that older version of yourself that you will be someday. That's what I tell people.
They say, there's a lot of sayings that I heard playing sports. I'm going to give them to you. Some people have said you gotta understand the overplay for the underplay, right? And that goes a long, long ways. Is you got to understand where we are now and be able to do something different. And then I also heard over time that hope is not a plan. You're right. Our clients, well, let's call them just people, right? People that love and care for their families. Their financial plan and strategy is hope, right? Yeah. Close my eyes, cross my fingers. I don't know how much I'm going to have, but hopefully I have enough, right? That's not a plan,
yeah.
Right? A plan is a plan. And so our responsibility, I think we got to get back to the basics of telling everyone our story and listening to theirs to see if we can't earn their business and give them the best opportunity to show up for themselves financially. If we don't do that, then we're not doing our job, right? And so if we're not doing our job, then we should go on vacation. If we're not going to do our job, then we should let somebody else who's capable of doing it do it. So I shift gears as an advisor, and so we talk about inflation, but I can't take my eyes off this market. I mean, the market's volatile, right? There's all, it's what goes up must come down. What goes down must come up, right? It's like Burger King. You can have it your way, right? I mean, I'm not sure. Like, there's no true economic insight. If you listen to a lot of the think tanks, the brilliant, even the economists, you listen to them and they can't put their finger on it. Usually there's trends, macro trends, micro trends. They look at these things. They can't put their finger on if the market's going up or down or we're in bull or bear territory. You look at it each day. It changes every day, and that's not normal, right? So with that being said, how are you talking to your clients when they're either the market's up and they're excited, or the market's down 20? The market S&P was down 18% 2025 going into June.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out of May going into June. So what are you telling your clients about volatile markets? What are you sharing with them? How are you keeping them focused on what's important?
It depends. I mean, it depends on the age of the person, what their time horizon is, what their risk tolerance is. All of that comes into play, of course. A couple of things come into mind, and I've made a fortune and lost a fortune in the stock market. One thing that I learned from that, two things I learned. One is don't get involved with things you don't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is it's not the timing of the market, it's the time in the market. And when you start seeing a downward trend, you need to decide if that's the time to withdraw from that particular thing. On the other hand, one of my football coaches had a saying on the locker room wall. It said, "Don't wait for the breaks, make them." And that requires that you plan for things that could go wrong, and that means the stock market. And I remember very clearly we had the stock market. Gosh, Rick was the schools had to be like just before Y2K, so 1998 thereabouts. And I had this one particular mutual fund that was just absolutely rolling over 50-60% year over year returns, and it was like there's no end in sight. It's like this is panacea for me until it wasn't. And I was using my cash value of my life insurance to fund his fifth year of college because I could get that out. It was not a bad deal. I could borrow for myself, and the interest was low, and I didn't have to ever pay it back if I didn't want to. Well, I didn't want to destroy something that's getting 40, 50, 60% each year, that value. And I lost all that money. And I thought, why didn't I take my own advice? Was I getting greedy? And that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people see things, they think it's going to be an ongoing event, and it doesn't happen. You could look at historical cycles of the stock market, bond market, the real estate markets, anything like that, and kind of find out, that things are going to go up and down. Look at 8-year trends, specifically in real estate here in California. It's like, okay, you're never going to see a downturn over there, and there's a catch up. And now we're in uncharted territory. But again, don't get involved with things you don't understand. If you don't have the risk tolerance for it, don't play it. You don't put money out there you can't afford to lose. And also start with the basis of having a solid life insurance portfolio. And again, I came into business before there was such a thing as universal life, actually. They were just coming out with it in 1980, 81. E.F. Hutton had that, and they went with, everybody started jumping on. Mass Mutual said, is this a life insurance policy, or is it term insurance with a side fund at the current rate? So whatever. Permanent life insurance, if I could go back today, as pedestrian as it sounds, I would sell tons more of permanent whole life insurance with a dividend paying company and a lot more disability insurance, because those are the two products that when I see a client, they say, thank you so much. And even back in the times when you could overfund the life insurance up to the MEC limits. They didn't even have MEC limits, Chris. You could overfund it. Premium could be $7,000. You could put $10,000 more in there. And the internal rate of return in the out years, about 30 years down the road, is like 9.5% year over year with no risk, and a life insurance policy that takes off. I had one of those in force until I found out that somebody twisted it out of there and put it in an annuity. This thing was getting I think the dividend on the policy was somewhere like $70,000 that year. 70,000. We bought it when the child was 7 years old, and now she's 47. But the people who want, they're looking at it as money. So I'm just saying, don't get involved with things you don't understand. And then shame on me for not staying involved with that granddaughter's life insurance these many years later, and that thing happened. But there's opportunities out there still for us to make a difference in people's lives, to give them a guarantee so that they don't have to come and stay with their children. They can come to visit and they can go home. They don't have to stay there.
Well, John, we've got the tale of two tapes, right? And so, I'll give you another saying is that one thing's for sure, two things for certain, okay, is that people are aging more and there's less people working. So how are you advising people? What are you sharing with your clients about the importance of long-term care, or what are you sharing with their kids, those professional kids that are like, well, my parents might be okay. Now, how are you sharing with them how to bulletproof their portfolio? Because let's say their parents have to come live with them, or their parents need care.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things for people to think about now and in the future, is that my financial well-being may be based on the fact that, I have a family, but the unforeseen things from the lack of planning that perhaps our parents did or they did not do, that could potentially have us 10, 15 years with with another dependent that we hadn't planned on. And what does that do to your retirement structure? So share with me, because we do have older people aging, right? Which means more people are going to be using long-term care if they have it, right? And we have younger people working, trying to make ends meet. So what are you sharing with either the families or the kids about the importance of long-term or longevity planning, or just life planning because of that?
Well, I have a personal story I'll share with you. I don't think we talked about this before. Matter of fact, I'm sure we didn't. But my mother-in-law came to live with us. She'd been a widow since 1966, never got remarried. And she was a self-sufficient, very brilliant lady, and just a sweetheart. I loved her dearly, would do anything in the world for her. And when she turned 80, she came over one day, and she had some damage on the front of her car. And I said, "Hey, Mom, how'd you get that? How'd you get that damage on your car?" She said, "What damage?" I said, "I think maybe it might be time for you to come live with us." And so we had her come live with us. And she lived to be 93, living with us. And she had the normal things you would think of as an aging octogenarian, I guess you call it, in her 80s and 90s. She started falling, having memory problems, and all the things that go associated with aging, and a little bit of dementia and stuff like that. But she had a small pension plan. She had no real financial issues, but it got to a point where when she needed extra help and she had a stroke, that we had to have a long-term care plan. And she had a long-term care from her former employer at Bank of America. It was $100 a day benefit for 2 years. It wasn't even worth filing the claim for her. And so you can see with 24-hour care, you need that for the first 5 or 6 weeks after a stroke victim, and occupational therapy and physical therapy and all things. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that can totally destroy a retirement plan in a matter of a year and a half if you don't have proper structure.
Yeah.
So I lived that. Dee Dee and I, we bought our long-term care policies when we were 50, all cash Prudential long-term care. They don't even have it anymore. It's great. But I tell everybody, and one of my neighbors, I just thought about this. Both of her parents at the same time. One had a stroke, and the other one had lived in South Carolina, fell and broke her hip. and two of them, and they went through hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
for 4 years, destroyed everything. Now, it's not just the financial destruction, Chris. It's the emotional price you have to pay, because these are your parents. You care for them because you love them. You'll do anything for them. But also, you have a life to lead too. You've got children or grandchildren. You've got things going on. And if you aren't looking at that, the price is going to be, you're going to take a second on your house. You're going to evaporate your retirement plan. You're going to take out a loan of some kind, and you'll be paying for something. It's like putting all your meals on your credit card, and long after that meal has been digested, you're still paying the price. You cannot afford to do that. So you take that problem, you put it in a package, you ask people, what are you going to do about it? Our money is cheaper. Put a little bit of money over here to that 1 or 2% to protect the 100%. So you don't have to do that. And the other part about it is, with my mother-in-law, the best thing that I felt was we gave her privacy, her security, and her dignity in her remaining years. We didn't stick her in a room and board place or assisted living until we absolutely had to, and she only was in there 45 days before she ultimately died. But we gave her all the grandchildren around her. Her children were around her, great grandchildren. She had her security. She never had to worry about a thing. And I'm going to go back to something I said real early in this interview is, were it not for my involvement with NAIFA, I would not know how to do that. And I'm afraid to got to tell you is that 90% of your clients out there, they're not NAIFA members because they have no idea how to do this stuff. They need us to guide them through this date that's coming down the road very soon, faster than we think.
Yeah, it's a sad thing because you don't, a lot of people don't, it doesn't click for them unless it's really actually happening to them.
Yeah.
And they hear stories about it but they just don't, they have a hard time actually comparing it to their own lives and saying like, oh, it won't happen to me or something like that. And it's just, it's a shame because it's something I went through. I was a caregiver to my dad briefly. And what's a nice lesson to learn about that is that my mom is definitely going to have a long-term care policy, because we know what can happen. But if you don't learn that lesson, it's hard for people to actually make that decision themselves. So it's important that they continue to tell those stories.
Well, I think there's a couple things there that we uncovered is that even the people that tell me they're self-insured, Chris, we don't need insurance. We're self-insured.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, let's just say you have to use long-term care. Whose money would you rather use, yours or the insurance company?
Right.
This is a simple mathematical formula, right? So let's just simply say, and if we put you in one of those policies that if you don't use it, the money goes to your family anyways, there is no excuse for you not to have it, right? So it becomes, because if you don't believe that your health can change, then get rid of your health insurance. And they all say the same thing. Well, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? I said, because you're not going to get sick. Like, why would you pay for health insurance if you don't need it? Well,
that's called irrational lies. They're rationalizing. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I could get sick. Well, you're saying you could get sick, but what happens if you don't recover right away?
Yeah.
Right? The bills keep coming. And by the way, on top of that, now you have to go through rehab or whatnot. So I have seen, John, I have seen people rip through. I have seen a family that were not prepared that we ripped through. And I was the advisor that was brought in because the other advisor basically just said, you guys just go through your money. I was like, wow. So we were able to work with a family law and estate planning attorney to do a Medicaid spin down and blah, 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 to still preserve a big chunk of the assets. But I learned that at NAIFA. So somebody was telling me, they were like, I learned, well, you ever heard of that? I'm like, no, I thought they had to spend all their money first and go basically broke. They were like, yes, but now you can do this. So we started talking about that with an estate planning lawyer. And it was fantastic because we were able to save, we were already through $1.7 million by the time that happened. And for the family, we were still able to preserve almost $800,000 of the estate. So with proper planning, right? But it was after the fact. And so if you're 50 years old out there right now, I'm telling you, and you don't lock in your long-term care, I think it's one of the most important insurance policies you're going to have. And now, now that they've had it so that if you don't use it, before it was you either use it or lose it. Now they have it so that if you either use it or use it, right? So either use it for long-term care or you use it for retirement or you'll use it
Right.
for a death benefit that goes back to your family. So there's no reason why understanding that we are living longer. And so it becomes our job to have that conversation with our clients and the realization that not only could it happen to you, but it could happen to you and your spouse, or it could happen to you and somebody you care about. So,
Yeah.
John, some of the planning I'm doing with my young professionals right now, as I call it, you can use this, by the way, parent proofing
Oh, yeah.
your plans. Well, what do you mean? What's parent proofing? Well, let's talk about this, right? We have aging parents. Who in here doesn't love their parents?
Right.
I love my parents, right? And so, you know, do you know their financial situation? And most of our parents didn't tell us because they were like, that's not your business. That's adult business. Stay out of our business. That's the type of thing, right? And so we don't know until we don't know, but by then it's too late. And so having that conversation with people about the importance of just having this, because this will take care of our parents and give them dignity and allow for them to be able to have something and we can remember them the way in which we remember our parents
Right.
and not having to do things for them that quite frankly we wouldn't want to do. So that's part of our mission is to get our young professionals, our professional people to have that conversation
Yep.
about the importance of protecting themselves and their parents at the same time.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting is on my mom, she lived alone, and she had nothing. She had no money. She lived in a little 2-bedroom townhouse in Orange County, and she just kind of stayed to herself. But she had her mother lived with her till her mother was like 96 years old, and that was my only reason my mom could afford to retire when she was like 70 something years old, because she had no money and she inherited a little bit from grandma. But uh, my mom had she was having some problems, but she had the thing, she wanted to not be a burden to anybody, so she never called until the very end. And she
Mm.
said, I need your help. And I'm 2 hours away from her. And she called one day. She said, I need your help. I can't get out of the chair, and I can't move. And that's the last thing you want to hear is something like that from your own parent. And then when she went into the hospital, we got in there, and I remember being around. It was my brother and I and Dee Dee, and we were there. And she coded right in front of us, and we had to make that call, Chris. Uh, and we had the conversation ahead of time. We had the conversation that said she didn't want to have any heroic measures to maintain her poor standard of living. She wasn't happy. She had she had cancer and everything else. She had all these maladies. So I think it's important to have those conversations, because when you have to make that call to not resuscitate your mom, it's a brutal decision. And I'm glad I was there, but I wish I hadn't been there, kind of a thing. It's like, I would have been fine if somebody said, well, your mom passed peacefully in the middle of the night and everything was fine, but, that kind of thing. But you know what? It was a wake-up call to me to the urgency of having these discussions before somebody has a situation where they have a stroke and they can't communicate correctly. So I'm just telling you, if nothing else, you need to go through the exercise today, TNT, today, not tomorrow. Things happen. Right. Automobile accidents happen. Major issues happen health-wise. You say, gosh, I only wish. Do you really want to say that to your siblings and your rest? I only wish I had had that conversation. Or it's like, in my case with my sons, I said, okay, here's the deal. If I can't talk, I'm going to give you the double wink like this to pull the plug. and just remember, if it's allergy season, don't mistake it for what I want. Kind of a thing. It's like, and so that's kind of the deal, because I don't want to have my wife having to make. I don't want those kids to do it. Know that we haven't had the discussion, because you have to live with the decision you make. Yeah, that's something. That's something. Zach. You think about it. It's like you don't want to live with that regret.
Exactly. You may hesitate. You may feel a lump in your throat, but if you can just get the words out to ask them the question, you'll know their answer and you'll be good. You don't have to talk about it again. At least you'll hear their answer and you'll know what to do. Yeah. I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, I think the hardest part we've got as advisors is not to project our desires over theirs, right? And that's really difficult to do because in our heads we start thinking about our parents, right? And they're saying they may say, you know what, I don't like my parents, I don't know, you know. And then all of a sudden, when we get over our skis, the pendulum swings, and we find ourselves wanting it more than they want it, right? And John, that ever happened where you're explaining to a young advisor, they're like, "You're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to make so much money, you're going to be doing that," and all of a sudden they're just like, "Yeah, I don't know if I really want that, man," you know, and like we find ourselves pushing in ways that one is unhealthy, but two is we want it more than they do. And that's part of what we have to do, those that have had some success in the business, is by teaching them through experience, right? And so you mentioned mentoring. So you're mentoring this young man to help be a part of the practice. What are some of the qualities, if we have young people listening out there, what are some of the qualities that you were looking for in him when you were like, you know what? I need somebody who I think could take this thing and run with it. What kind of qualities were you looking for so we can have some of our listeners start to look and see when they look in the mirror, do I have these qualities?
Actually, and I wasn't really looking for someone that because I still thought I was invincible. And then it became a reality check when he came on the scene and asked if we could meet for lunch so he could find out about how my practice, how I built it, and why he sees our family. We're always at all the kids' sporting events and dance recitals. We have a great big family that loves each other. We're close by and all that. And his father had died a couple of years earlier, so he was like I'll say the sheepdog of the family. He's taking care of him. He's still living home. He's got his mom there and stuff. He's got a younger brother, and they're looking for that security. They're looking for the same safety net and security. But he was looking for fulfillment. I think is one of the things he had a great. First of all, he was very smart, and he's 22, be 23 in December. And he was a D1 baseball player, University of Chicago at Illinois, matter of fact. Gave him a scholarship. So he's a team player. He understands hard work. He's not afraid of hard work. He's resourceful. He's looking at all the stuff that we talk about the AI thing. He introduced that all to me. I'm going, okay, well, let's talk about this. He is driven because he wants to make sure that he can build that floor of financial security for other people that they didn't have either when his dad died. It was like, okay, so here's a reality check on life at an early age that you can transition into a financial service industry where you can make a difference in people's lives. And he wasn't talking about the money for money. He was talking about it as that psychic income, if you will, for doing the job correctly, knowing that you've got a relationship with people who will help you let you help them. And at that there's that intangible component of when you write that application and the people sign it and you got it in place that they feel relieved. So he said all the right things. Plus, he wants to marry my granddaughter, and I said, okay, I shared this last time, but it's like if you have a vested interest I have a vested interest in the outcome of the success pattern here. If you are successful, and you guys get married and eventually down the road, maybe kids are in the offing. I got a vested interest. Make sure those kids have got food and clothing and stuff. And so don't screw this up. But basically, here's where you could do it. And then you find ways that he's actually enhancing my business practice. And I get rejuvenated and I'm out there doing more business now than I have in the last 4 years combined because I can do it falling out of bed. It's just like, this is how you do this stuff. And he says, well, how do you know what to say, when to say it? It's like, well, that's experience,
Mm-hmm.
And part of that comes to that mentoring thing, which I don't say I was prepared for it. I know I'm not a good manager. I like to think that I'm a decent leader because I have the experience from an early age, but I'm seeing results all around the place with him. He called me yesterday. Hey, can we meet for lunch tomorrow? He's on it every single day. He's passionate about what he's doing. He likes to see the outcome. He has a goal. He has a plan. Campbell and him have talked about their plans together, what they want to do. And he's not turning back. He's going Mach 2. And he'll be a successful young man. And if I can have anything to do with his success, I told him I will throw all my resources and connections behind you 100%. And they all deal with NAIFA and NAIFA members around the Federation. I think you may have met him, Chris. You'll meet him if you come out here to E3 again. Just a great young man, just a great young man. So for me, that's the other thing too. It allows this legacy of mine to continue, and he can work with my sons other there, and they can keep this this Davidson insurance practice running for another 50 years if they want, or they change it to whatever they want to do. But people will still be taken care of.
John, we've come to time, man. I told you it happens fast.
It does. Life has a way of making us all a little bit older.
We do appreciate you always, and thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom on our podcast. Because we were talking earlier, and if my computer doesn't serve me right, we were talking earlier. We were talking about sayings and kind of slogans, which was kind of interesting. So while we were talking, I pulled up common sayings that are out there. I just wanted to see, John, how good you were. So Zach, our speed round today.
Oh boy.
We'll see if we can stump Mr. Davidson today. So I'm loading it up here. I had it on my screen here.
That's not fair.
Hey, I'll get a chance to steal, right?
You'll get a chance to steal, Zach.
All right.
All right.
So we are going.
These are company slogans. Okay.
Company slogan. So we were having a conversation before we got on here about just some sayings, and this is updated as of 2025. So we'll see how far we get, and let's have a little bit of fun. Okay.
All right.
So with that being said, let me pull up this one because this one looks great. All right. So let's start off. You ready, John?
Fire away.
All right, here we go. The happiest place on earth.
That's Disneyland.
That is right. So, John, I'm going to give you a point on that. Zach.
Oh, we're going back and forth. Okay. Yeah.
Zach, just do it.
Nike.
Yes.
That's such a cream puff. That is a
1-1. 1-1. All right, John, you ready?
Yes,
First
sir.
1 to 5 wins. The original, if your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist. Ooh.
I've never heard that. It must be from somewhere in Illinois. Is that right. Oshkosh, maybe?
Nope. All right. Zach, you get a chance to steal.
If your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist?
It says the original, if your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist. That's the slogan.
Wow. I have no idea. I'm gonna say Rolex.
No, it is Old Spice.
Old Spice. That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
That makes sense now. Yeah. That's funny. I've never heard that one.
All right. All right. You ready?
Sure.
Mr. Davidson, there are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there is blank.
MasterCard.
That's right. All right, Mr. Davidson, that's 2 for you. Zach.
Mm-hmm.
The ultimate driving machine.
Oh no. I don't know. I can't pick it.
Okay, John, it goes back to you.
It's a BMW.
Is it
Come on,
really?
I own one. Come on.
I should have said it.
All right, so it's 3-1, Zach. Come on, man. What are you doing?
I don't know.
All right. John, you're in good hands.
With Allstate.
Okay. So it's 4-1, Zach.
I hear you.
He's on the precipice here. He's got me where he wants me.
All right. So, Zach, what's in your wallet?
Oh, that's Capital One?
Yes. All right. So it's 4-2.
Right.
John can win it on this.
He's going to. I got it. He's got it.
Okay, let me give him a good one.
Shit, great.
Oh, this one's hard, actually. All right, John, it's in you is the slogan.
Gatorade.
No, is it in you? Yes.
Oh.
That's it. Gatorade.
Gatorade.
Yep.
That's it. I didn't think you were going to get that. That's it. So
You nailed it.
Zach will
I got beat.
Zach will give you one last one. Finger licking good. If you don't
That's
get
KFC.
Okay, I was gonna say that's it.
That's
So
KFC.
that's our speed round for today. We appreciate the contestants of this round, but Mr. Davidson, you prevail. Zach will have to study up on his slogans. Or when Zach gets his BMW, he'll know the ultimate driving machine, whatever it may be. But
It was on the tip of my tongue, and I was like, I don't want to get it wrong. It'll look so bad.
Mr. Davidson, anything you want to share with NAIFA Nation?
No, I'm excited for the direction that NAIFA is going. The congressional conference was a monumental success. We're building on that. We're having opportunities right now to speak to our clients about the economic conditions that we're seeing in the United States. Just start a discussion, find out what's important to them, and then talk to them about protecting their financial future and that of their families and their parents and grandparents as well.
Awesome. Zach, Maestro, do you have anything before I close this out?
No, I appreciate your time today, John. It was great hanging with you.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate you.
So, gentlemen, I'm in the process of reading a new book. I'll share it with you. It's Leaders Eat Last. And it's a book on leadership and the importance of creating culture. It's called Leaders Eat Last. Take a look at it. It's really, really, really good, right? And the mentality and the concept was in the military, the ranking officers don't eat first. The others eat first. And it goes behind the philosophy of why. And it's good. It's really good. And so it's service over self. It's true. It's selfless leadership. It is around how do we get back to giving more than what we take. And so those out there listening to NAIFA Nation, it's a great book. Take a look at it. John will even sign it for you. So we appreciate you for tuning in to Advisor Today podcast, where we give you the voice of leaders in the industry so that we collectively can show up better for ourselves, for our clients, and our families. Thanks for tuning in to Advisor Today podcast. We'll see you next week, same time, same place.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining us for NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series. Make sure to subscribe to get future episodes. And if you're interested in coming on the show, let us know.